So I'm Deborah Hamilton, and thank you for coming to the MAAP community call again, because I'm so thrilled to see everyone here. Uh, it's been such a busy week, and there are two things. Hey, Sally, how are you? There are two things that I really want to talk about. I want to apologize for the faux pas. I was running another Zoom, and it ran late, so my apologies. I didn't think it would run so late, but it did. Hi, Joe. How are you? Good to see you. Hi, Rhonda. How are you? So Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, and the MAP Community Call, and the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Don't forget to see and go listen to it. It's fun. But this week, I wanted to check in with everybody after I talked about one thing that I have found in my practice uh, going crazy over the past week. It's that people have made plans for their pets, and I've spoken to 3 attorney groups, and the attorney groups were all shaking their heads because they go, "We didn't know that that wasn't enough." And I went, "No, it's really not enough." So I'll tell you the story. So the attorneys all made plans for their clients, for their pets. And it said, in the case of an emergency, call Mary and she will take care of my pets. One of the parties actually had a contract that said, in the case of an emergency, or if I can't care for the pet, the contract says that I have to return the dog to the breeder. So the dogs were returned to the breeder, and the breeder placed them. And the person lived. And so when the person came home, she wanted her dogs back. But that was 4 months after she had gotten sick and had to go to rehab and everything. And the people who've had the dog for 4 months weren't told that it was a foster. They were told that it was likely that this person wouldn't survive. And so the dog was theirs. And now there's a big kerfluffle, believe me, because on both sides, it is an incredibly emotional discussion, because I've taken care of Fluffy for the past 4 months and I love him. And when I got him, he was underweight, he was matted, he was this, he was that. So I'm taking better care of him. And of course, the person who was sick was sick for a few weeks, maybe even a month before they went to the hospital. And so they didn't bathe the dog, they didn't comb the dog, they didn't brush the dog, but they'd had the dog for a number of years. So the dog wasn't in the best of shape because she wasn't in the best of shape. And should she not get her dogs back? And I spoke to 2 attorney groups, all of which said to me, we always just say, you give the person to the person you appoint and they're done with it. And I said, yes, but you really have to ask your client, so when I give the dog to Sally Anderson, what is it I want Sally to do? Do I want her to hold on to it? Do I want her to put it in a kennel if she can't care for it? Do I want her to give it to someone as a foster, knowing full well that the dog is going to come back to you? This is a huge question that you have to ask, and you don't think about it when you're making your trust and estate plans. You think, listen, I'm just going to give it to Sally and Sally will do the best for it. And, I don't think about the fact that when I get better, the dog might be gone. And then I really regret getting better, which is how some of these people feel. I actually lived this once because I had an owner who returned his dog to me when he went in for triple bypass surgery. And you might remember, Sally, because you might have been in my life, I'm sure you were, when Shaney Boy came back. And he went to my friends Denise and Brad. And Shaney Boy, when I gave him to Denise and Brad, I said to them in writing, this dog belongs to Billy Smith. And Billy's going in for triple bypass surgery. And when Billy comes out, however long that takes, that dog goes back to Billy. So when I gave them the dog to hold for me and to be in a family, they knew that the only person that dog could go to, if it wasn't them, was Billy. And a year later, Billy came back to get the dog. And we had long discussions. And at the end of the day, Billy felt that the dog had settled in so well with them that even though it was heartbreaking for him, he left Shaney Boy with Brad and Denise. But Brad and Denise handed him the leash and said, this is killing us. But we knew from the get-go that if you came back, this was your dog. So you need to make sure that if you make a plan for your pets and you give people the power to take care of your pets because you can't, that whatever decision they make is a decision you've talked to them about and written down, or that you'll be okay with whatever decision they make. because there really is no way to go back on a decision that's made that isn't delineated. So I wanted to get that out there today because it was such an important piece I talk about when I say appoint caregivers, and make a plan. And people say to me all the time, well, what do you mean make a plan, Deborah? Well, you got to think of the things that you want to have done. And so before I check in with everyone, I'm just going to remind you of the MAP stands for make a plan, appoint caregivers, address the needs of your pet, and publish it so that people know what you want done with your pets. And then, of course, the 7 Ds. I hope I remember because sometimes I do, and sometimes I have a brain collapse. So death is the first one. But then there's divorce, delay, disability, disease, dementia, and disaster. I remembered, yay, because you really have to plan what's going to happen to your pets if a hurricane comes or the fire comes. Connie Kohler couldn't come on the call today, but she's always our drum beater because she's in the fire prone zone of LA. She's always got her car packed, ready to go because she's in the fire zone in LA. Sally and I are in Hurricaneville. If we have hurricanes coming, we know we need to make sure that our pets are cared for. If you have a dog or a cat, pretty easy to put them in a kennel and move them. You have fish, you have a lizard, you have a snake, or you have a horse, not so much. We lost electric here for about 2 days, and my husband and I had to find a generator to run the fish tanks on because fish can't live without filters. So if you have animals and you have a disaster or you have any sort of issue that comes up, you need to make sure that you think about what you're going to do in that eventuality. It may never happen, but believe me, in my life, so many things have happened that put crimps in my walking and things that I really make sure I tell everyone, do not think it's not going to happen. Today is very funny because we had black ice here today, and I walked my girl this morning, very little black ice. Tonight I went out to walk her and I was like, wow, there's a lot of melt and now it's freezing. So she was very good. And she said, I'd really like you not to break anything, Mom. Let's go back home. And so we did. So I'm so glad all of you are here. I'm going to start with you, Joe. How is your Goldie? I think I forget. What's her name?
Effie.
Effie, right. Right.
Yeah.
And you got her from my bestie, Mel Porter.
Um, I'm not quite sure where the name came from, but the breeder had given her that name from a song or a movie or something,
And the
and
breeder was
it
Mel
was
Porter,
different.
right?
Pardon?
Who was the breeder?
Melanie Porter.
Yeah, she's fabulous. You've got a great one there. That's a great dog.
Oh, you know her.
Oh, very well. Yeah, Mel and I have been friends. She's actually one of the, people I've appointed to take care of my pets.
Oh, she's gonna have a full house. She usually does.
Yeah, she usually does. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're back and Effie's doing well.
Effie is doing well. She's being a couch potato this winter. She needs more exercise, but we're in a rural area on a gravel road, and it gets snowpacked and slippery, and I don't need to fall down again. So
Yeah, you
I
and
don't
I
get her out
both.
there. I
You and I
throw
both.
her toys from the deck, and she runs after them and brings them back. So she gets a little bit of a workout, but she's doing
Good.
fine.
Good, wonderful. Yeah, I feel the same way. We have hills here in Pleasantville, and poor Roxy gets to walk on the flats, and that's not very much, but we get to walk on the flats, and then she gets to run around the backyard, which is like a postage stamp. So I'm so glad you're back, Joe. How's your plan coming? You working on it?
Well, I did make some. I did. In fact, I talked to Melanie, and between her and her mother, in the dire emergency where some local folks can't handle, or it's going to be an extended period of time, they are willing to take on Effie, and they're actually willing to come up here and pick her up,
Fabulous. But you've
which
made contacts with your neighbors, right? So that if God forbid you need immediate, leave the dog here, leave Effie in the house, we'll take care of her.
now one neighbor's in the process, and there's another one. One neighbor will be very short term.
Yeah.
Another one who has some dogs would be a little longer term, but I haven't seen her. COVID kind of keeps everybody locked up, so.
I know that's why we put postcards in those mailboxes, but when you drive by to go to the supermarket.
Yeah. So yeah, but I have put some parts of the plan together.
Great job. I'm so proud of you. Hey, Rhonda, this is your first time. Rhonda's a friend of mine from Vet Partners, and I'm so glad she's here tonight. How are you? Tell us where you're from and what kind of pets you have.
I am in Texas, so I have actually run from a hurricane. I was in Hurricane Harvey.
Yep.
And I am also currently fighting an autoimmune disease. So once I read into some of the stuff that you're working on, I was like, duh, of course I should be looking at this. So this is one of my kids. This is Gus.
Oh, hi, Gus. He's a pug.
He's a pug. He's a
He's a
6 month
brindle.
old
He's a brindle.
brindle pug.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I have 3 rescue cats. And we also have some feral cats that live outside that decided that we're home now. So yeah, I've got a myriad of, throughout my career, I've collected animals.
Oh, yep. And me too. We have fish and we had lizards and we had turtles and we had dogs. And none of them were more difficult to move than the lizards. So, yeah.
Yes, I evacuated bearded dragons in
That's
Hurricane
what
Harvey.
I had. Bearded dragons. Absolutely. They're hard to keep warm when you have to evacuate. So,
Right? Yep.
Yep. Yep. Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
And I'll go through the stuff after we check in with Susan and Sally. Susan, how are you?
Deborah, I'm doing pretty good. I'm, thinking about all of this and how I might be able to make a plan. I have not made contact with my neighbors because, frankly, I don't feel I could do the reciprocal for them if something were to happen. So it's kind of difficult when you don't have I'm a little bit uncomfortable asking people to help me out. And so I know my situation's a little different, but do you think I can still benefit from taking the class that you have coming up?
Well, it's always helpful to be put in a place where you have to do the work. But if you keep coming to the calls, there'll be another workshop in April. So it's not dire to get here in February.
Okay.
But as far as, it's funny you bring that up because I was at a independent living facility in La Jolla, and I had about 40 people who had 20-pound dogs. And they all said, well, yeah, we'd love to find somebody to take care of our pets, but we don't want to reciprocate. And I said, well, that's not always necessarily necessary. I said, if you meet somebody in the dog park whose dog your dog gets along with, ask them, because they might be able to help you. If you have people in your vet's office, vet techs or things like that, ask them. If you have trainers, I remember last week we had a trainer on and she said she's the go-to person. This is long-term, short-term. So long-term, you're going to have to find someone like Mel and her mother to take the dogs long-term. But short-term, you really need to find someone who is good with animals, who you know and trust, which if you have a groomer or you have someone at your vet's or you put the dog in a kennel.
I appreciate that. You've given me some things to really think about, like a trainer would be ideal.
Yeah, because, and they'd be short term. So they'd be the people who would take the dog and then you would say, if you can't keep it, find a foster for it. But that would have to be in writing so that, again, when everything settled down, if you wanted, you could get the dog back, or that the dog or cat would be kept in the new place if you couldn't take it back. It's just something you have to think about because you really need to know that trainers and kennels and groomers are always everybody's first line of defense. So they have 40 dogs coming in the middle of a disaster. Hi, Karen, how are you? There are 40 dogs coming in a disaster, and so they might not necessarily be able to take everyone.
Right.
If you're willing and you really trust them and you're willing for them to find someone who can foster the dog and everything's in writing, that would work too. But that's what we talk about at the workshop. We talk about what your limitations are because everybody has them, especially now during COVID. Everybody has many limitations.
Right. And somebody could take the dog and then something happens to them and then they can't take the dog anymore. And then it just goes on and on. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing's foolproof or perfect. That's what the trust and estate attorneys said to me. They go, this is much more complicated than we're really willing to get involved with. I said, well, send them all to me because I'm really willing to get involved with the weeds because the weeds are what's going to save the animal's life. And my thoughts are that dogs and cats are sort of easy. It's the horses and the lizards, as I said, and the fish.
Yeah, right.
They're not easy. You're not
Easy.
going to hook up the horse to a trailer in the middle of a hurricane. I mean, you
Right.
could, but you better leave early, right, Rhonda? You better leave early if you're leaving with a trailer in a hurricane, because that's not a good thing to be pulling along.
Yeah.
So Kieran's still in Tenerife, I think. Kieran, how are you?
I'm still in Tenerife, which means everything is good.
That's right.
How are you, Debbie? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So Kieran is our resident Irishman who's now COVIDing in Tenerife. He comes as often as he can because I think it's like the middle of the night in Tenerife, or at least close to 11 o'clock, right? He's frozen. Tenerife also shuts off. No, there you are. You're back.
We're back.
What time is it
20
there?
minutes. 20 minutes to midnight.
Yep. So he's a diehard, which we appreciate. And so Kieran also does something that is really interesting that I'm hoping to spread the word about as much as I can. He's writing a program by which people can learn how to be responsible pet owners before they get the pet. And he wants to make this sort of mandatory in certain places. Am I getting that correct, Kieran?
Well, mandatory, yeah, the first part is right. Mandatory is probably too harsh a word. It's really
suggested.
It'll have to be a voluntary uptake from the ground up.
Yeah.
Then with all things, when if it gains any popularity, naturally the political leadership will run in and claim it to be theirs. So that would be the ideal situation.
Yeah, because it's so interesting. I work with a feral cat group in a village here in Westchester County, and we just had a discussion with the village, and they want the feral cats removed. And Rhonda told us she has feral cats in her backyard that have taken up residency, and she probably would hold out the same information that I'm going to share with you today. Feral cats don't go away. They stay where they are. They have territory. They stay where they are. So these feral cats happen to be in a municipal area with some firefighters, and the firefighters don't like the cats being there. There's 3 of them. They've been trapped, neutered, vaccinated, and they keep all the other feral cats in the area away. However, the firemen don't like these cats. And so I don't know if any of you know the fact that there's this thing called the vacuum effect, which if you have feral cats in a spot and you trap them and remove them, you probably have no feral cats in that spot for about 3 months. Maybe not that long, but I'll give it 3 months. But then you'll have the unneutered, unspayed, and unvaccinated feral cats to fill in that vacuum, because there's something there that creates a hospitable environment for the cats. So it always behooves you to leave the TNR'd cats where they are, because they keep the other non-TNR'd cats away. However, most people don't know that. And if you tell them that, they think you're a crazy cat lady. So you're not a crazy cat lady, because I only have 1 grandkitty and I like her. She's nice. I don't have any feral cats in my neighborhood. But now, after spending, I think, 2 years with my clients who are feral cat TNR specialists, I've recognized that what's happening now when people are losing their homes, they're letting their cats out because they've seen the colony of cats and they've put domesticated cats out with feral cats, which is not good for the domesticated cat. They usually get beat up. And often the domesticated cat has not been spayed or altered. Another not so good thing to do. And so when the cats are trapped or even caught because they come up to you to be pet because they're somebody's pet, they go to the SPCA, they're spayed or neutered, they're given vaccinations, which may be a double up on vaccinations, who knows? But then they're kept, which is great. So they're off the street. If they get off the street before they succumb to being injured by the feral cats who really don't understand domesticated, because they're all domesticated animals, But cats that live with people are more able to matriculate with people than feral cats. Feral cats are not going to. So in COVID, a lot of people have dropped their cats off thinking they could survive on the mice in the area, which isn't really good. They should really just take it to the shelter and leave it there to be safe. But it's a question about people knowing that they can't take care of their cats because of everything that's happened during COVID. So that's why you have to make a plan. I get it that, you know, we all have less money to spend. Some of us have lost our jobs. Some of us have had to move. And if that happens, if you have a MAP plan in place, then you can call those people who are short-term or long-term caregivers until you get back on your feet, or hopefully, you know, they'll take the cat or the dog, long-term, short-term. So I'm going to open the floor up. Does anybody have any questions? Because I talked about the 7 Ds, so you know what I harp about. But if you're having any issues or trouble with anything, let me know what I can help you with. Just pipe in there. Oh, Sally, I forgot to ask you about Athena. I'm sorry. How is Athena and how is your walk today? You're muted. I do it all the time.
Athena's great. She went for 2 walks and she's sound asleep. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So have you found, I've been thinking, because you had lost and are about to lose one of your caregivers. I was thinking about Little Mac's owner, who's up there by you, and Kate Seymour, who's up there by you.
Well, I think it's very similar to Susan's situation where I've reached out to them and both of them have said, yes, you can absolutely take my dog. And I said, I'd love to take care of it. And I go, and I have Athena. And they go, yes, isn't that nice? So that's the way it goes. So I actually, my #1 caregiver has recovered from COVID. So
oh, thank God.
Yeah, thank heavens. But I could totally relate to what Susan was saying. And I'm just like, you know, there are a lot of other people that would love to take care of my dog. And so those 2 Irish setter people are not the 2.
That's really interesting because that's really surprising, but not surprising. So, and don't get discouraged if that happens, because you're going to have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince. Yeah. So, any questions? Because otherwise I'll ramble on, as you know I can. Any other questions? Oh, fabulous. I can ramble on. So let's go through addressing the needs of your pets. So when these dogs and cats of this woman who got very ill were given away, they were given away with not a shred of information about the dogs. Not a shred. They got their vet records, yes, but they didn't get anything else. And in fact, one of the dogs was on a lot of medications for skin issues and stomach issues. And she was actually given to a woman who was a holistic vet who got her off all the medications and gave her a holistic, you know, diet. And she actually grew all her hair back and is living a life of Riley now. So it's always good to make sure that you give all the information and you have it in one place so that whoever is taking your dog knows, as we've said before, are they afraid of thunder and lightning? Are they good with other dogs? Are they good with cats? What are they, you know, what are their idiosyncrasies that only we know? I know that Roxy does not like white dogs. I don't know what it is, but she does not like white dogs. And if a white dog walks by, I just hold her really tight because she just doesn't like them. I don't know. I've never had a white dog, so I don't know why she has a prejudice or a bias against them, but she does. And Roxy eats anything that isn't nailed to the floor. And yet Athena, not so much. She'll eat for a day or two and then she won't. Sally has told me that she has a cadre of food there that she changes off and on when Athena decides this isn't really what I want tonight. I want something new. It may be that I'm just mean, and Roxy has faced that fact, and so she eats anyway. But, you know, I think that letting them know that they're good when their nails are cut, they're not good when their nails are cut. They're good when they're in the bathtub or on the grooming table or when they go to the vet, or they're not. And it really is a function of just writing down everything you know about your dog or your cat or your bird or your horse. Rhonda and I were on a conference this week, and one of the guys at the end had a parrot on his shoulder. And I've actually written to him and I said, I would love to chat with you about the care you've put in place for your parrot, because he's got two of them, a boy and a girl. And it is one of the things that I'm a member of 2 or 3 carrot groups, parrot groups. They eat carrots, but parrot groups. And not one of the people come here to have this conversation. And those guys live such a long time. And some of our dogs live such a long time. Those little Yorkies will live to be sometimes 15, 16, 17, maybe even 20. So you really need to make sure that if something happens to you, they have a really good jumping off point from which to get care and to make sure they're okay. It is really very, very important. So that's the address the needs of the pet. We've talked a little bit about appointing caregivers because that had to do with the trust and estate attorneys that I spoke to. And as I said, I always speak to trust and estate attorneys. So if you're speaking to your trust and estate attorney and they say, I don't know what you're talking about, just give them my number, because this is a process. The attorney who wrote the will for the woman who didn't die said, you're on my speed dial now. If anybody asks me to write anything about a dog, I'm going to call you first. And I said, well, have them call me, because it's really working with them to make the plan that they want for their pet that's important. And when you make the plan for the pet, the key piece of information I share with everyone when they're making that, throw the spaghetti at the wall. This is the absolute stuff I want for my dog. And then we sit down and we reality test it. Can you really require somebody to walk it 7 times a day because that's what you do? Can you really require the person to have a fenced in yard, or that they bring it to the kennel, the groomer every week for a bath or whatever? That's something you do, and it's really important to you. And it really is something the dog's used to. But I know that when Roxy goes to stay with Sally, her life is so much better than her life with me. However, when she comes back home, she fits back in. So they do adjust. And a lot of people who I talk to who haven't made a plan for their pets, sometimes they say, well, I'm dead. What do I care? And I go, well, your pet will care, because they really do want to know that where their next meal is coming from. And no, you don't have to care. If you have someone who's a good friend, you can let them do what they think is best for the pet. And that might not be exactly what you want when the push comes to shove, like this woman who got sick and had in her estate plans that if she got sick, the pet would go to so-and-so. When she got better, she didn't put in the plan, but if I get better, I want the pet back. That wasn't in there. And if it's not in there, nobody's going to be able to read your mind. Like, nobody's going to be able to read your mind about the idiosyncrasies of your pet. And then finally, of course, because Rhonda's new and she hasn't heard this before, the P for publish is absolutely the most important piece of the MAP plan. Because if you write everything down and you talk to your caregivers and your attorney and everyone, you need to make sure it's in writing and you've handed a copy to your attorney, your veterinarian, your family members, and the caregivers you've appointed. Because if you don't, it can be lost. And I've told this story. I don't know. I know Sally's probably heard it, but maybe everyone else hasn't. I had someone who came to one of our MAP workshops, made the entire plan, went for surgery, never told her husband she made the plan, put the plan in the drawer. She did not survive the surgery, which was a shock to everyone. And so someone came in and said, I know where the dogs were supposed to go. And the husband didn't know she made a plan. So this woman took all 3 of her Irish setters and placed them. And when the people who were in the MAP plan came to get the dogs were gone because this woman had taken them and placed them. And so if you don't publish it with your attorney, with each caregiver, with your veterinarian, because Rhonda will bear this out because she's in the vet field, veterinarians cannot treat your dog if it comes in with somebody not named as the party who has the ability to care for your dog at the veterinarian. There's 2 reasons for that. One is they really have to make sure that the owner has given this person permission to bring the dog in, and you wouldn't have to pay them if, in fact, you never gave that person the ability to bring the dog in. So they want to be paid. So they will not do it because they want to make sure they're going to get paid. So it is really an imperative. even if you just write down, jot down things, talk about it with the caregivers, talk about it with your family, give it to your attorney and your veterinarian. That would be key. And then finally, of course, is my mantra, and I hope all of you have done this, the card on the door, the card on the fridge that says, in the event of an emergency, call these two people. And so, Joe, you better have Melanie and Rachel's number on that refrigerator, plus your neighbors, because you want them to make the phone call, not take Effie. They can't take Effie. They have to leave Effie in the room. And even if Mel and Rachel are 4 hours away or 8 hours away, they'll know, because you shared that information with them, right? Who the two neighbors are who can come and let Effie out if they get that phone call from EMTs or something. Same with you, Susan. There has to be someone who can tell the animal care and control, don't take the dog. I'm going to take care of the dog until she comes home or until we figure it out. But the dogs stay here because, of course, as I've told you before, if they go to animal care and control and you don't get them out in the specific legislated time, they will be given to a rescue. And if they're given to a rescue and they're placed, the rescue contract states that they do not have to tell you where the pet is, because if they've tried to reach you and they weren't able to reach you, they are free to give the dog away without your permission. So it's really imperative that for no other reason except that you don't want your dog to be given away, you need to find someone who can be that first line in the event something happens to you, and that the police, the EMTs, the fire, they see that information in a space that is easily visible. So on your front door, on your back door, on your refrigerator, they can't have to look for it. It's really important that they don't have to look for it, and that they can find the person who's going to care for you. So as I wrap up, I'm going to go around and ask everyone what one thing they learned tonight that they didn't know last time. So let me start with you, Rhonda. What's one thing you learned tonight that you didn't know before?
Just the how much further that I should be thinking about this. I did want to add one thing to your advice. When I was actively managing in the practice, we suggested having a little information card in your wallet, and also put in a contact in your phone that says ICE pets. So in case of emergency, pets, because people will look at your phone as well. Even if you're not, if you're incapacitated temporarily, they can use your phone, your thumb, get in your phone. But it'll say ICE for you or ICE for your pets. And there you can have those contact names listed.
That is a great piece of information, because if they do look at your phone and they do press ICE, if they see ICE pets, then that'll be helpful. Right. I always talk about 3x5 cards in your wallet, but then they have to look for it. And I want to make everything idiot proof.
Yeah, they're going to go for your phone first usually. So if you have ICE twice, it'll list every version of ICE. So ICE pets is how you can get your pets listed. And then also have their microchip numbers. If they're microchipped, have that listed there as well. If that pet gets scared and gets away during transit with all of the moving around, then any veterinarian, any shelter can search that microchip number and get them returned to you and get them back in your pipeline.
Well, that was last week's discussion, right, guys, with Shadow and with Lola, who had gotten out after a car accident. And I said, that's why you need crates, maybe. That's why you need a seatbelt, maybe, because letting them ride around free in the car is really fun until, somebody pokes their eye out, right? Until something happens, and then not so fun as they're running down the highway. So absolutely great input. Thank you, Rhonda. Yes, the cards in your wallet are absolutely great. The ICE on the phone. New information for me. I'm so thrilled. I knew we had ICE for people, but now I'm going to have to go check my iPhone because I didn't see that on my iPhone. So I'm so glad you gave that to us. I'm always learning. I learn so much from the people who come to my my meeting. So I'm so glad. So anybody else want to see what they learned?
Yeah. What are you saying about on the phone ICE?
Yes. So in case of emergency, it's called ICE. So if you have an iPhone or you have any sort of phone, you will find in settings that there's an ICE setting for in case of emergency. So that would be when you put your wife's number, your children's number. But Rhonda just let me know and let all of us know that there also is a setting there for ICE pets, where you would put that your pet is home. This is her chip number, and maybe even give the information about who to call or who her veterinarian is.
Yeah.
And even if you
I
don't have
did-
an Apple product, you can create a contact and just pretend like it's a new friend. Create a contact that you name them ICE Pets, and that way you have the information in there, and you can make sure that it's there, no matter what phone carrier, no matter what service you use.
One of the things I did for Effie was I made another name tag to put on her collar. So these are the ones that fit on the collar. It's not a
Right.
hanging thing, you
Right.
stick it on the collar. So I've got, my name and address and her name and all that. But then I made one that said in case of emergency, and I've got Mel's information on there. So
Great.
if anybody took the time to look at the collar, they'd see, oh, belongs to me, but this is an emergency, call Mel.
There's several numbers, right? Exactly, for them to call, you and Mel. That's perfect, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, that's helpful if somebody looks there. I mean, the same
They
thing as
will.
coming to the house. It's helpful if somebody looks on a refrigerator or looks on the door,
Yeah.
So you're counting on somebody finding these things or finding it on your cell phone. So
Yeah.
you put enough information out there, I guess they'll trip on it sooner or later.
Well, we're hoping. That's why
Yeah.
redundancy is my middle name. Oh, I used it tonight. I didn't forget to use redundancy tonight. I am the queen of redundancy. Anybody else? All
No,
right.
I think there's just one queen of redundancy here.
It's me. I know. I am the queen of redundancy, because I just want all of our pets to be safe, to be well cared for, and for you to understand what not writing it down means to them. Because we all, I've made so many plans for my pets over a glass of wine with my friends. And unfortunately, that is not something, if the pets get picked up by animal care yeah, exactly. If the pets get picked up by animal care and control, and you don't have something in writing, you're not getting your friend's pet out of animal care and control. So without further ado, I thank you all so very much for being here. Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and the MAP community, that I'm so grateful all of you have spent these 30 minutes with me. Take care. Give all of your pets a hug and a kiss for me. What, Kieran?
Very quickly, while I'm on the Spanish wine, could I ask, did you get a chance to look at the document I sent you?
I did, and I'm going to talk to you about it. We'll set up a Zoom so we can talk about it.
That'd be great. Hopefully it's near the stage of getting a focus group to look at it, and then we'll finish it.
Perfect. And this could be a great focus group to have them look at it.
It
Perfect.
could be. It's Joe wants to come in there.
I want to ask you, Karen, what was the program that you were working on and what was the purpose of it? The thing started that way.
Okay, do we have 3 minutes, Debbie?
Yes, we do.
Okay, there's two parts to it. The first one is, how to put this? It's really everything. Okay, there's two parts to it. One is an online internet course that has a certificate at the end of it. And the idea behind it is that if you're thinking about getting a dog from a rescue shelter, this will prepare you for the world ahead. So that if you do the course and you get the certificate and you turn up at the rescue shelter, you contact the rescue shelter, the manager knows you're not a tourist. And then the second part, the other thing I'm working at the moment is what I would consider as the engine behind a lot of the dogs that end up in rescue shelters, which is, and it's something all the charities have ignored and the SPCAs have ignored and the legislators have ignored, which is most of the dogs that end up in a household where they end up being abandoned. I'm sort of going around the world with this, but the 50% of all dogs that end up in rescue shelters are there because the original owner, didn't really understand what they were getting involved in. Now, in most cases, that situation arises almost subconsciously, where you've got children between the age of 6 and 10, and there's sort of pressure applied to the parent. We must have a dog. We must. And what I've produced is, where it is at the moment, it's in draft copy of a very simple ebook designed for the parent and the children. And the idea behind it is we've come up with this imaginary dog that lives in a rescue shelter. And if the dog could decide what the parent and the children need to know before he moves into the house. So the idea is the first part is a contract for between the parent and the dog, and then after that there's different steps of learning tasks for the children. So this is all before they even think about adopting. So at one level, I hope it will be a dissuasion. In other words, parents and children say, oh my God, you know, dogs come and they don't have batteries. Do we really know what we're getting involved in? And then the other side of it is that if children and the parents buy into this, it's a bit like a resource management or a basic management course for, like a university course for children, that you have to understand, okay, here's the beginning of the project, the middle of the project, and the lifespan of the dog. That'll be the end of the project. So I'm trying to pinpoint an area that's sort of the obvious, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Mhm. Okay.
So if anyone has time after Debbie's had the first review, I'd be happy to spread it around. And we have everything else in place. We have the graphic designer, and we've done the first few designs. And I will tell you a quick story. Do we have one last minute, Debbie? You will actually love this.
Absolutely. Yes,
Right.
because everybody learns so much from this. Are you kidding?
Right. This is actually down your field. This is from the legal world, and it was. I got an awful shock when I discovered what was happening, which was I was out on a hike a couple of months ago, and right, the backstory is I asked about 15 people through LinkedIn who are experts in sketching dogs, you know, people who make their living from as a dog artists or dog sketchers. And all of them loved the idea of being involved, but when it came to it, none of them had the time. So I was trying to find an artist, and I was talking to this woman on one of the hikes here in Tenerife, and said, oh yeah, I can do a bit of art, no problem. So she told me to come along to the beach the next day and she'd do something. So she sat me down and she said, okay, do you have a dog in mind that you want to be the star of the show? And I thought, yeah, there's a dog on the farm where I'm staying at the moment. And she said, okay, what's the height, the width? What does it look like? When you talk to the dog, what does it say? What does it look like? What are his eyes like? So she went through all these questions, and I thought, you know, can you not just sort of put the ears and say, oh no, we have to go through all this. So the next day she sent me this sketch, and I nearly had a heart attack. It was the dog she didn't see. And I said, my God, how'd you get that? Oh yeah, I used to work for the police as a sketch artist before the computer composite came in.
I have to tell you that is that the dog in what I read? That was a great
Yeah.
dog. She's fabulous.
She is fabulous. And the funny thing is that when she was 16 and working for the police, she was earning more than both her parents were
Wow. As a sketch artist.
as a
You know?
sketch artist.
Yeah, it's always new and interesting what comes up, and those pictures I'll after I read it and Kieran gives me the okay, I'll share it with you all because the pictures were just so artistic is all I can say,
Yeah.
because they were caricatures and just fabulous caricatures, and I guess based on the description you made, Kieran.
Well, we're going to make one or two little changes, and the dog
Well,
in
I won't
question,
share until you tell me I can. So there you go.
when you've had a read of it, we'll move it. The dog in question is actually a rescue dog, and the story behind it is true. It did have a normal family, then it got hit by a car, but the original owners couldn't afford the vet bills, so they sent it to a shelter.
Released it, right?
And then somebody that has a farm took it, and as I say, it has one eye. So we're going to change the drawings a little bit and put a patch on the dog's eye.
That is perfect. Oh,
And the dog's name is One-Eyed Leo.
One-Eyed Leo. I love it. I love it. So I'm so
Right.
glad all of you are here. I know everybody here probably shares my interest in what you're creating, so they'll absolutely want to be part of it. And we'll move it forward, right? Because having people understand what the responsibility of pet ownership is key. Because all of us, especially Joe with Effie, who came as a puppy, um, understand what the commitments are to puppies when they come home and to older dogs. And
Came as a 2-year-old.
she was a 2-year-old. Oh, well, then you hit the jackpot.
I had puppies in the past and I didn't want to go through puppyhood again. So I
Right.
was looking for something a little bit more mature.
So you hit the jackpot because that is the way to do it. If you want a dog, you go to a great breeder like Joe did, who's letting one of their dogs go or got a dog back, and you can get the best dog in the world with all the guarantees that come from that breeder because they're going to mentor you and help you every step of the way. Anything else, everyone? Because I'm going to let you go.
I have thought of something,
Sure.
you know, with COVID, I know that our dogs can catch COVID.
They can.
It's what I understood.
Very
Yeah.
rare. Cats are worse than dogs.
Really.
But yes, they can. However,
And how
they're
does that complicate the whole picture of, you know, what will happen to the dog if
well,
some,
that was one of the reasons people didn't want to care for people's dogs who had gone to the hospital for COVID because they suspected the dogs had COVID or the cats had
Okay.
COVID. So they didn't want to take care of the neighbor's cat because it could have COVID.
well, the humans can't catch it from the dog, but the dog can catch it from humans?
Well, it depends on what article you read because every article has a different outcome.
Okay.
The best thing is to just recognize that you can catch COVID and wear gloves when you pick up a dog that's different from yours and maybe take it to the groomer or wipe it down with, not caustic, but, disinfectant wipes and hope for the best because, I think we all probably walk in the vicinity of COVID somewhere.
Yeah.
And we wash our hands and we wear masks and so that's what you would do for a dog that you had to take care of that its owner went to the hospital for COVID. Just
Well, how do you protect the dog from catching COVID from the human?
well, it's very hard to do. But you just keep the dog in quarantine as well. They stay with the people who are sticking away from the person with COVID. They don't go to that person or they go to the caregiver while the person is recovering from COVID so that they don't catch it.
Dogs won't wear masks.
Yeah, they aren't good at that. They tend to put them off and they tend to do it very quickly. So, well, it's a great question though, Susan. And so on that note, I want to let you all go to have dinner or for Kieran to go to sleep. And I will see you all back here on Wednesday. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. And I look forward to seeing all of you again next Wednesday. And if you want to share the link with friends you think might want to come, that'd be great. And remember, we're having our workshop if you want to come. Deborah Hamilton, have a great night.
Thanks, Deborah.
Cheers, Debbie.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.